Hello and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. It is 7 a.m. Mountain Time here in Loveland, Colorado, and it's May 2nd and 37 degrees outside. And it's a little chilly here in the basement, but at least I am awake, which I was not feeling quite so awake on Tuesday. I am just back from a wonderful 9-day vacation in Florida where we spent about 5 days in Key West and attended a workshop all about story and content marketing in Miami in a beautiful facility in the financial district, and got super inspired by an amazing museum that we visited. It was a great trip. So we had a nice combination of lots of nature, lots of culture. We visited Hemingway's house, which was inspiring in some really interesting ways. They had his original typewriter, which was cool to see, made me want to come home and get my typewriter out. But when I come back from a longer trip like that and I feel a little tired and my head feels a little full, it can feel challenging to get back into my creative groove. And travel isn't the only thing that throws us off our creative groove. It could be a stressful event, a loss, a death. You get sick, you get a cold, you don't feel like creating. You have a very busy season at work and you truly don't have the time. One of your kids, if you have young ones still at home, get sick. So many things can take us away from our creative practice, and it can be hard to come back. So in Tuesday's video, if you haven't watched the first part, I very sleepily talked about how puttering and play are two essential tools for getting your creative groove back. And play looks a lot of different ways for different people. It looks a lot of different ways for me as well. I think I already have paper all over me this morning. So today I want to share with you some fun finds from a recent shopping spree at a antique store that's going out of business downtown in our little downtown area, and talk about making some handmade collage papers that I can use in other projects down the road, and how I use old book pages to do that in really simple materials. And good morning, Yvonne. I was super inspired. One of the exhibits that we saw at the Perez Art Museum in Miami was this beautiful display, and the paintings were maybe like, or the pieces of art, they were collaged, were all different hummingbirds from all over Central and South America. And they were all made with handmade collage papers. And it was super inspired to give that process a try. And then I realized, well, I need to create some collage papers to do that. So I thought what I would do this morning is just dive in with some really simple materials and talk about a few different ways that we can create some of our own handmade collage papers for using in our art journaling, visual journaling, or intuitive collage practices. So that's my plan. We'll see how it goes. And I am excited to be back with all of you. I've been up for a couple of hours. I'm still waking up pretty early on East Coast time. So when I went into this antique store, there was this stash of these gorgeous ledgers. These were Minette books from, trying to remember, from some type of lodge. And I know it says in here somewhere, but I fell in love with these, and I texted 3 of my artist buddies and I said, who wants a ledger? There were 7 of these ledgers and I bought all 7 of them. And the guy asked, what are you going to do with them? Look how beautiful these are with all this old handwriting. And I told him that we were going to use them in art projects and that I used old books for this a lot. So he also gave me a whole book of really old books that were falling apart that couldn't be used. And I'll show more of those over the next week. But I loved these ledger pages. I thought these were just really magical the pages, the numbers. There's incredible stories in here. I don't know what they're going to do when I pull them out and start to add some paint, what's going to happen to the pages, but we're going to find out. So I'm literally just going to rip some of these pages out of these gorgeous ledgers, and we're going to get a little, I'm going to play with my Derwin Ink Tents sticks this morning, was what I decided. But I also want to make some collage master sheets, and I'll tell more about that. So this is still in that vein of how do I find my groove again? Well, I start with play, experimentation, and what I would add to the puttering and the play is preparation. I'm preparing pages for future play. And so the ledger pages are one way that I'm going to do that. There were all kinds of just wonderful things tucked in here. I think it was a Masonic lodge maybe, but these were their meaning minutes. I love they have these little stickers where they've added things to the page. Some of them had also things stapled, or they had letters tucked in, and some of them, the handwriting kind of stays the same throughout the whole ledger. So again, I just thought it was super fun. And like these have a stamped steel on them. Look at this. Here's this letter that's tucked in here. So these are, hey, Teddy, I just sent you an email. I'm excited to see you on Zoom in an hour. Here's a letter from June 28th of 1948. Just holding something like this in my hands feels pretty amazing. And this says, in compliance with the request made by somebody, a committeeman, in regards to like it just goes on and on. We the undersigned. So interesting, excuse me, interesting language here. And this is attached to this beautiful letterhead that has this seal. You can just barely see that in the light, but it has this gorgeous seal on it. So definitely some treasures to find. So these ledgers were such a sweet find. And there were a whole bunch of old books as well. And I just have pulled out some pages to play with this morning, so I might do some found poetry. I love how aged these pages were, super yellow and brown. There was a book that was falling apart. I don't know if it's maybe the New Testament. If anyone reads Hebrew, I would love to send you a page. Love these. There's little torn fragments. And the gentleman at the shop, was a reseller of collectible books. And these were all in too bad of shape to be collected, which ended up being a bonus for me. But I loved these gorgeous marks. Yeah, I know, right, Teddy? So I think antique stores are a good one, or, if you have maybe some local accountants that might have some tucked away. So a lot of times you can find them on eBay as well. People will sell ledger pages. And I don't know how easy it is to ship things to Germany. And if you're still coming in October, I will share some ledger pages with you when you're here. So this was beautiful. The ledger pages were beautiful. And then one of my friends gifted me a book. This was a workbook of some Asian language, and it was a grammar book. And again, these make such amazing collage fodder because they make such beautiful marks and texture on the page. And I didn't bring the cover of the book over here, so I don't know. But I love that we have the calligraphic characters, we have kind of the phonetic spelling, and then the definition. So these are vocabulary sheets from different pages. So I wanted to do a couple of things with these different pages. And I'm going to make some what I call master sheets, or what other artists call master sheets. And I'm going to use, I have a bunch of leftover coloring pages that were printed out for an event where I was promoting our Sacred Circles membership. And so I'm going to just rip and shred and glue. So when we talk about how to get our creative groove back, and we talk about this idea of play and puttering as well as preparation, making master collage sheets is great, because then I can make one or two of these and photocopy them for use in other projects over and over again. That's a way to really, make some of our beautiful ledger pages and other pages last longer. I am using matte medium to create this. I don't even know how well these are all going to glue down, but I'm just going to have some fun quickly putting these down on the page. So I want to do two things today. I want to make some of these master collage sheets, number one, and then number two, I want to take some of these old book pages and add some color to them to use in some collages. And then next Tuesday, I will share how I would use all of these things that we create today in my intuitive collage process. So I'm noticing a little bit of the ink is coming off of these old pages. There's a little bit of color kind of mixing in with the matte medium, and the matte medium does tend to do that anyway at times. Already liking the way that this looks like. It's a really fun page. I have way more pages and papers than I need here. Where did those? Let's do some of these. And you can tell how old they are. Look how fragile these are, right? And so being, mindful of the fragilities of the paper, they tend to crack. So, these wouldn't make like great junk journal pages, because when you fold them, they would crack. So being mindful of what you're doing with the pages. And there's no kind of rhyme or reason. Notice I'm putting the text going in different directions. This is not about being able to read the text. It really is about creating this interesting page that then can either become a background for an art journal page. I can tear pieces off of it and use them for other projects. I'm not getting caught up in reading on one of the book pages. I actually set it aside because it had some really fun words on it that I thought would make some interesting found poetry. So that would be another fun thing to do. And I'm also looking at the colors of the pages. Notice how white this one is relative to these pages. And do I want to mix the colors a little bit? So this one feels like maybe it's not quite a match. So let's try a little bit of this ledger paper. I'm noticing a little resistance there to tearing up these ledger pages, but there's a lot of them, and I'm very happy to use them in a variety of different ways. Something about other people's handwriting always just is inspiring and playful. Again, trying to just move the the words and the handwriting around again. What I'm liking here already is this the bits of blue on here, adding that little bit of color in a different way to the page is interesting. And I don't need to cover up the whole page either because I have that wonderful mandala design, sacred circle design, created by my talented son Connor. I even kind of like this moment by moment down here. I wonder if I can push that back. That one's been glued down maybe, and bring that M back because I kind of like the words moment by moment down there, so maybe we'll leave those. And maybe just a couple more pieces on here. Notice I'm being extremely liberal with the matte medium, and I'm doing that intentionally because I want this to be very flat, and I also want to, like, I can see some of these already starting to buckle. I'm okay with a few little wrinkles, but I really want to have a flat page. And if I want to be able to create right over the top of this page, right, I want that to be nice and flat. And I can see where, you know, some of these edges aren't sticking. Okay, so that one feels done. It feels fun. And what's cool about these pages is you can do a couple of things with them. I can go in and add color and marks, and I'm thinking I might come in and add some color in between these or do a little mark making once it's dry. You can either make photocopies of this if you have a copier at home. You could also take a picture with your phone and print out picture copies of the pages that you created. Another fun way to just reuse these papers. And I'm actually working on a brand new class right now. It's not open to the public yet, called Soul Journeys, that's going to be all about archetypes and using intuitive collage to explore the sort of personal mythologies that are active in our lives. And it'll be coming a little bit later in May. And so I will actually be sharing some of these handmade collage papers in the class for people to use. So I'll be sharing some of the ledger images in that class for people to use. So it'll be one of the bonuses that's included. And anybody that's in, so Teddy, anybody that's in my Creative Renaissance class will get access to these as well. So you're actually going to be able to print out some of these ledger pages. It's not quite as fun as the originals. All right, so that one, I keep thinking it's complete, and then I look at it and it's not quite there, but this one feels really fun as a collage master sheet. So liking where that's going and wanting to maybe add a little bit of color to this page. So the other theme that I wanted to talk about this morning is we talk about this idea of how do we get our groove back, our creative groove, when we feel disconnected from our own creative practice, or when, you know, we feel like we've finally established a routine and all of a sudden we fall off the creative path. And that can happen because we get sick, a kid gets sick, someone else in the family gets sick, we travel. In my case, this is, you know, my response to coming back from a nice long break. Okay, I'm looking for a cheap brush because I don't want to get matte medium into the bristles of any of my nice brushes. And some of the ways that I get back into my groove are puttering in play, which we talked about Tuesday, Today I talked a little bit already about preparation and how just making time to cut images out of magazines or to make these master collage sheets or other handmade collage papers is a great way to just get back into the habit. And it's again, I talk about this a lot, it's about process over product. I'm not here to and I'm using some Derwin Ink Tents blocks, which will dry permanent. And I just want to maybe get a little color on the page. Not so sure about that orange, but we're just going to wash it in there. It's going to mix with that matte medium. And I love it because when it dries, it will look a little watercolory, but it will be permanent on the page. But the other thing I want to talk about when we're trying to reestablish a creative practice is about how important it is to manage our energy, not our time. We often think that, oh, I just need to get better control of my time. And the truth is that we all have all the time we need for what's important, and yet we don't prioritize the things that matter most to us, nor do we give our energy to the things that matter to us most. We tend to put others first. Oh, I love that nice bright yellow on there. Get back up on the camera here and turn it this way, then we can see the whole thing. That we tend to give our best energy to busy work and to-dos. And so one of the things that I think was a game changer for me personally in my own consistent creative practice was nothing else happens in the morning before my creative practice. I am very, very consistent with writing, meditating, making art. Hey, Lisa, good morning. To meditating, making art, journaling, working on my book, things that take a different creative energy, right? So I'm recognizing that one of the things that's happening is I'm not prioritizing my book project, even though I keep saying, I'm going to write this book. And I have to literally sit with my calendar and block time for my calendar to do the writing, which means I'm going to have to give up some other things. And I have made this story up about I only have time for painting in the morning or on the weekends, or I'm too tired in the evenings to paint. Well, that's not true. I make art every evening sitting in front of TV. I'm just not down here in my studio because usually by the end of the day, I'm ready to be upstairs with my hubby. And so it's learning to just move things in our lives around to prioritize what we say we want. And for me, prioritizing art is and writing are the two most essential things. And for me, that usually means not prioritizing work, which I'm really good at doing. And there's always a lot to do. And surprisingly, it all gets done. Okay, so this is turning out to be an interesting, colorful page. I don't know that this was quite where I thought I was going to go with this. And as I'm looking at this, what I'm thinking is this is going to be a really fun background page for something else, right? It feels like the beginning of an art journal page. So I'm going to set this one aside to dry. And I want to play with some of the individual sheets of paper and even the fragments like this one of this gorgeous ledger and see, because I want to just create some collage fodder today is basically what I'm doing. I'm just having fun creating pieces of paper that later I can tear up and use. And so I'm just going to have some fun here with a little mark making. So another thing about managing energy over time is that it allows us to look at whole body energy. So I teach this, it's one of the core teachings in my Creative Renaissance group is about managing energy, not time. And it's inspired by one of the most transformational books that I've read sometime in the last decade. And that book was called The Power of Full. Oh my gosh, this is so cool, you guys. So, total squirrel moment here. So, from where the pen, let's see if I can bring that out even more. So, where the pen scratches came through other pages, I can see text and marks in that. Let me see if this will zoom in and focus. So you can just see where the handwriting from that ballpoint pen from the other pages is coming through on this paper. I don't know what's going to happen when I get this wet, but I'm loving that sort of magical effect of the invisible writing showing up here on the page from other things that were written. Very cool. My cats are fighting. Not so cool. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my circles here. And in this book, The Power of Full Engagement, hey, you guys, stop it. Stop. Sorry, they're screaming behind me. I know, isn't that cool? It's so cool. And so they talk about how there's 4 kinds of energy. And I think this is kind of, one of those things to really think about in regards to how are we spending our creative time. And I'm sort of curious, exploring, is this ink going to stay put on the page? Is it going to move? And that there's physical energy, mental energy, emotional energy, and mental energy. And that without physical energy, we don't have the capacity to deal with anything else. Right? Lisa, I don't know if you've gotten to that module yet in your Creative Renaissance, but it's one of my favorite modules. Okay, I'm actually liking how the Derwin is flowing onto this page. Okay, there, some of that ink maybe is spreading a little bit, or maybe it's some of the purple. And when people start to work with me in your Creative Renaissance, a lot of times in our assessment we do at the beginning, vitality tends to be something that is low on the list, and that we all want to increase our vitality. And the way that we do that is by managing our physical energy, which means good sleep, good nutrition, right? Good self-care practices, and more time for art. If you remember last year when I talked about the brain, some of you will remember the book Your Brain on Art that talks about why making time for creativity, whether you're making art, listening to music, watching a play, like everything counts in terms of sort of the third leg of the stool, along with exercise and healthy eating. Creativity is right up there as essential to our self-care. So I get really passionate about talking about how do we increase vitality without thinking there's something wrong with us, or that we have to, go on a diet or start a new exercise regimen. It's not as much about that as learning to really understand energy, our own energy. And sometimes the biggest shift in vitality that we need to make may be mental or emotional. Maybe we've been grieving and our emotional energy is low. Maybe we're pissed off about something, and that also sucks our energy until there's some sort of resolution. Mental energy is your acuity, right? Your ability to think, to problem solve. Without good physical energy, we don't have great mental energy, and we don't have access to our creativity. The kitties definitely have the zoomies this morning. So I love pages like this that are just super abstract and playful, loving the transparency of using the Derwin Ink Tents. I didn't put too much color here over the top of the writing, but I did put some. So let's get some water on all of that, because if I don't put the water on it now, when I add it to an art journal page, that the Derwent will be activated, but as soon as it's activated with water and dries, it'll be pretty permanent in there. I am not thinking about color choice. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Not thinking about color choice here. I'm thinking about marks. I'm just intuitively picking the colors. This is another example of puttering and play to get my groove back. And I'm already starting to look at these and feel curious about, well, how can I use them in a collage? What role might they play? And if you've never played with Derwin Ink Tents, they are a little bit pricier art supply, but they are worth the investment. They last forever. What I love about them over a traditional watercolor pencil is the vibrancy of the colors. Feeling like maybe a little, let those just play and dance on the page. I also love that they dry permanent. They are great on just about any surface, including fabric. You can heat set them with an iron. Georgia, she's literally shredding paper on my desk. I will be right back. I think they're over the I'm so happy to see you, and now they're in a I'm really mad at you because you were gone for 9 days, and they are being extra annoying this morning, which makes it hard when I'm down here trying to do my meditation. I should know to close them out when I need quiet time in the morning. And she literally was shredding a piece of art that I created as a sample for a collaboration that I'm doing this summer. So not so good. And now I totally lost track of what I was saying. Derwents, you can use them on anything. They're great on fabric. You can heat set them. Yes, being scolded. So true. And they're going to get some scolding back. So there's a big puddle of water here, and so I'm just drawing right into that puddle of water. Look at the density of that pigment. What I love about the sticks or the pencils is that you can literally dip them in water and get those gorgeous rich pigments, or you can draw with the tool and then activate it with water and get those gorgeous rich pigments. So lots of fun ways to play with the Derwents. But again, I really love the transparency of being able to see through these. And once this is completely dry, I would probably seal it with some matte medium for using it in collage. So fun, quirky colors. Like, I don't know what's up with my color choices this morning, but I'm kind of just going with it. And then when I saw this gorgeous exhibit, so I really love these pages. When I saw this gorgeous exhibit in the Perez Art Museum of these hummingbirds, and I don't think I took a picture of them. I took a picture a lot of the art. It was the whole exhibit was gorgeous. It was a number of artists, and the theme was spirit in nature. And these collaged hummingbirds were exquisite, and what I noticed was they were all handmade peepers. So there were a lot of solid colors with texture underneath. So what I'm thinking is another thing that would be great to have is some of these just gorgeous textured peepers, but with different colors on them, and maybe even some blending of these colors. So that if I wanted to create a mountain bluebird, for example, I know that I would need a collection of blues, and I would need a collection as well of like a gorgeous sort of rusty orangey red, almost like a burnt sienna. Our mountain bluebirds are just beautiful. We haven't seen too many of them down here yet, but when they are in full plumage, they are day glow blue. They're just exquisite, beautiful birds. All right, so I have two options here with this. Zoom back out just a little bit. With this, and I want to show you both when you're playing with Derwin Ink Tents. One thing to do is then just to come back and activate this with water. Look at the blue. Love these different blues, and I'm going to let them just be very sketchy on the page. And this is going to be a gorgeous blue page that can get used in all kinds of different ways. But I also love activating Derwin Ink Tents directly with the matte medium. It seals it in, it strengthens the peeper, but it also, you get some really vibrant colors. It still activates that ink tents, but in a different way. So I'm going to get some of these nice marks in there, and I'm still going to seal that color in. So I can get a watercolor wash, or I can get something a little more where I'm keeping some of those marks on the page a little bit different. So two ways that we can work with our Derwins. And the more that I work it, you can see the more that it's kind of spreading that color a little bit, but this is also very, very thin peeper, so I don't want to overwork the peeper too much. So one of the other types of energy that I think it's so important to talk about when it comes to especially the work that I do with art, where I really believe that art heals. And I'm going to do that same process, but I want to do a couple of these book pages. I love making collage fodder, and then, you know, I have my whole floor behind me will be covered in paint. So let's try a couple of these old book papers here. And I'm going to do that same thing with some solid color pages. But I believe that art is such a powerful tool for healing and transformation, that it has the power to change our lives, and it certainly changed my life. Like, I still remember vividly the day that I discovered Zentangle and the Zentangle process. I was surfing the internet. I had a dear girlfriend, Tina, when I was living in Plano, Texas, and we had started doing some fun, creative projects together. We did some decoupage stuff. You know, we were just trying all different kinds of things. And she turned me on to this artist from British Columbia, Violette Naranjo Clark. She has actually was one of the first mixed media art teachers that I discovered and was inspired by. And she has a beautiful book that is probably still available. Oh my gosh, this has some beautiful words in it. So what was on the, it is the nature of the poet to become tender and imaginative in the loneliness of confinement. He banquets upon the honey of his own thoughts, and like the captive bird, pours forth his soul in melody. Have you not seen the nightingale? I got that one too covered up. But I just love that. I know, and there's poetry in here as well. And so I think I was on Violette's blog or from her blog. I went to someone else's blog and I stumbled across, it must have been on her blog, and she had a guest post from someone about this process called zentangle. I had never heard of it. I've always been a doodler and a maker of marks. I'm loving what the color is doing on this old paper. It's acting very different than it did on that sort of slicker paper. Lots of water and just letting those colors move around, mix and blend on the page. So I got really curious. I started going down the rabbit hole of what zentangle is, discovering patterns. Took me quite a while to find someone to take a class with because there were not that many people teaching it yet. Now there's lots of people everywhere teaching it, but I finally found someone who was willing to do a private class for me and my friend Tina. At the time I still had my publishing company, my parenting magazine, but I paid her to come and do a private class in my conference room in my office for my friend Tina and I. And it's funny. It's one of those practices. It didn't stick as much for Tina, but it did for me. And I went on to become a certified zentangle teacher a few years later, like 3 years later. So I'm celebrating my 10th anniversary as a certified zentangle teacher this year. So loving the greens, and now I can see the words on the page. So again, loving this transparency here of these playful pages. So that's going to be a gorgeous one. And it was the thing that reminded me. So this one I want to do some marks on, I think, instead of a whole color wash, but still going to keep those marks in maybe a similar color family. So let's see what we can create with just doing some different color marks. And these I'm going to dip the stick directly into my water. And it'll be interesting to see. So this color on this brown isn't as vibrant as it would be over here on this white. It's kind of a pretty limey green. So I'm also noticing the impact of the paper. Yeah, very different. So just noticing. And it was the thing that reminded me that I was creative, and it has been an ongoing love affair since I discovered it in 2011. And then, so I was making zentangle, happy doing that. Tina and I were having fun making projects when that same process, I can't remember at the time, I think what I was Googling or looking for, but I stumbled on someone's blog. I'm going to sneeze, sorry, excuse me. Who was a soul collage facilitator. I'm like, soul collage, what's that? That sounds really cool. Tina and I had been having fun with mixed media collage and starting to do some art journaling. And my stuff was so messy. Like I found an old journal from that time. Man, I was clueless. I didn't know what I was doing at all. And when I look back, it's fun to look back at those early pieces and see how far I've come in the last decade. But so I discovered soul collage. I'm like, Tina, we have to try this. And we both became addicted to intuitive collage. We started playing on our own. And at that same time as we discovered Soul Collage, I moved to California, from Plano, Texas to California, and discovered that that Sina Frost, the originator of Soul Collage, lived just 4 or 5 hours up the coast and was about to have a facilitator training. So my friend Tina flew out from Texas and we attended Soul Collage facilitation with Sina. We were very lucky. It was one of the last times that she was there for a certification course. And she was freaking hilarious. I loved her. She was such a humorous, generous, and hilarious soul who really embodied the archetype of the jester. Okay, having fun with just some of these random stripes here. And I was just beginning to think about starting my coaching practice at that time, was kind of clueless about where I was going, thinking that I was going to do something more creatively focused at the time, and that Soul Collage would be a part of that. And Tina was also a coach, and everyone else in the room were art therapists. Like, we felt a little bit out of water in this group. Plus, we were brand new. You had to have created a certain number of cards ahead of time, right, Teddy? You know that. And if you're still here. And we had very few cards. People were showing up with boxes and boxes of all these like exquisitely beautiful cards that they created. It was a bit of a moment of imposter syndrome. Who am I? What am I doing here? It was interesting, but it was an amazing experience. We were in this gorgeous facility right on the edge of the coast in Pacifica, California, near Santa Cruz, and it was such a beautiful experience, and I took away so much from that. And it was my first introduction to intuitive collage, which has evolved and changed. That was in 2012, and so that has evolved and changed. My own practices have evolved and changed a lot since then. And okay, that one feels really fun and playful. I'm also starting to see what colors go. But here I had zentangle. I had, yes, love it, right? Identify with the imposter feeling, but have loved the first, yeah, it's such a beautiful process. And it started to, as I started my coaching business, I thought I was going to, I think I want to dive in. This will be my last piece here. I thought I was going to do this creative coaching, right? I thought that in 2012 I was starting a creativity coaching business. But what happened was everybody came to me and said, "But Minette, you're so good at marketing." Actually, let's play with this fun little piece of paper here. And, oh, and I really love these with this gorgeous Hebrew on them too. So this is the problem with making collage fodder. You never want to stop once you get started. And everyone kept saying, "But Minette, you're so good at business. Can you help me with my marketing? Can you help me with sales?" And so I became a business coach for artists and creatives, and I did that for 10 years, but I always integrated the creative piece into it, because we all need to approach our work through that lens of creativity. So for over a decade now, I have been using art and creative practices as a tool for calming our brains, for managing emotions, for visioning our futures, for falling in love with our own lives, for remembering who we are and that creativity is our birthright. And it has been a privilege to witness so many people, men and women, remember how extraordinarily gifted, talented, and creative they are. I had one woman who was very much, I'm not creative. And within a few months, she was saying, I never go anywhere without my bag of markers and my journal and my planner. And people that grew up without access to art supplies, finding new ways to create. Okay, this is going to be fun because we're going to see if this ink is going to spread just a little bit, and it's going to add a little bit more color to this page. So we're going to have a kind of a purpley red page here. Funny how that the ballpoint ink on the ledger page didn't smear, but look how this one is smearing on this paper. So paper makes a difference. But this is going to be a yummy page when it dries. I will probably come back because that ink, now that I know that ink is a little water soluble, I will seal this page with the matte medium so that I don't lose all of the handwriting when I'm furthering with the collage. And so sometimes our own imposter syndrome is the thing that stops us from having a consistent creative practice. And when we're telling ourselves those stories, what happens is that we stop making art because of the stories that we're telling ourselves. And so we make something we don't like and we fall into judgment and think, oh, this is a waste of time. I'm never going to be any good. Or I don't have time for this is another way of saying I'm not any good at it. Why bother? But I would say that we're not in this to create beautiful products. We're in this because of the healing practice of making time to putter, to play, to explore and experiment, to put emotions on the page, to heal and transform, to problem solve, to dream. There are so many ways that our creativity and a regular, consistent creative practice serves and nourishes us. All right, my friends, I'm going to pause there for today. Made some beautiful papers, all of which still are wet. So next week on Tuesday, so I'm going to take a break from the Monday mornings unless I hear from you guys that you really love those Monday meditations, or they may get recorded for a while because I'm really committed to putting some extra hours in on my book this summer. So I may record the Monday morning meditations because I need them. But I will be live Tuesdays and Thursdays only for the next few months. So thanks for playing along. Thanks for listening, whether you're watching the replay or here with me live. I appreciate each and every one of you coming in and listening to my stream of consciousness rambles. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Have a gorgeous rest of your day. And I will see you all next week. Thank you, Yvonne. Appreciate you.